Omaha has long been known as a town of ill repute. In its early years, it was known as the Sin City. It was the Devil's Den, the gateway to the West, and you could not set foot in Omaha without finding some vice or another. There are many early Omaha pioneers who contributed to the town of saloons, honky-tonks, and gambling houses, and many of them are attributed with promoting that type of lifestyle, but none of them ran Omaha's seedy underbelly better than Tom Dennison. He was known as the mob boss of Omaha, and he started his life of crime early. He was the son of Irish immigrants and came to Nebraska at the age of 2 years old in 1860. When he was young, he traveled throughout the West as a prospector, a saloon keeper, a gambler, and a robber. He was known as having harsh tactics, was very self-serving, and seemed to have no conscience or moral structure. In the early 1890s, Tom arrived in Omaha, 34 years old, carrying $75,000 in cash in his pocket, the equivalent of $2.4 million today. Upon surveying Omaha, he declared that it was a town that was wide open, meaning there wasn't a lot of law and he could get away with a lot of shady dealings. There was very little legal control over gambling, liquor, prostitution, or criminals' vices and interests. So Tom acted as the power broker between the business community and the local vice lords. He operated a private bank that was on Douglas Street, the current site of where the Union Pacific Center is today, and he offered a safe repository for those ill-gotten gains. In order to weed out his competition, he started to actively work with the local temperance unions and was successful in closing down half of the saloons in Omaha. That would be the half that he wasn't running or benefiting from. In 1906, the Omaha Republicans supported Erastus Benson for mayor, and he was a reformer who supported a progressive movement. Tom Dennison was very worried that Benson would come out in favor of prohibition, and he backed the Democrat nominee, a man by the name of James Cowboy Jim Dahlman. He seemed a little more tolerant of Omaha's sporting district. Dahlman was elected mayor that year, and that began Dennison's political reign over the city of Omaha. Dahlman was mayor 8 out of 9 consecutive campaigns between 1906 and 1930, and he lived in Tom Dennison's pocket. The only mayoral exception to Dahlman's run was in 1918, when Edward Parsons Smith was elected and served as mayor from 1918 to 1921. The amendment of the Nebraska State Constitution that allowed prohibition came to pass, and that was a deep blow to Dennison's political control over Omaha. Ed Smith's reform-minded commitment to cleaning up Omaha was really a thorn in Dennison's side. That year, the Omaha Bee newspaper made fictitious reports about assaults on white women by black men. And it has been determined that what was really happening were Dennison's henchmen were dressing up in blackface and terrorizing white citizens in downtown Omaha. Every time one of these stories was printed in the newspaper, Mayor Smith was deemed unable to manage and run Omaha. This culminated in a riot on September 18, 1919, when a white mob lynched and rioted the whole day through. It caused the death of 2 rioters, injured multiple Omaha policemen and civilians, and included the attempted hanging of Mayor Smith from a light pole outside of the Douglas County Courthouse. This event culminated in the brutal lynching and subsequent violence upon the lifeless body of Willie Brown. He was a black Omaha resident who was falsely accused of attempting to rape a white woman. The riot did not stop until over 1,700 federal troops from nearby Fort Omaha and Fort Crook came and stopped the massive crowd. Now, the police compiled a list of over 300 alleged participants, and the name at the top of that list was Dennison's right-hand man, Milton Hoffman, who was conveniently no longer in town because Dennison whisked him away as soon as the riot was broken up. It is said that Hoffman led the crowd from South Omaha to the Douglas County Courthouse where Willie Brown was being held, whipping them into a frenzy all the way there. A grand jury found the riot of 1919 was indeed premeditated as a political tool, as a series of assaults against white women by white men in blackface. But no one was ever found guilty or persecuted for the crimes against Willie Brown. That following mayoral election, Dennison got his wish, and Cowboy Jim was once again mayor of Omaha, and he stayed there until 1930. It is said that during that time, no crime happened in the city of Omaha without Boss Dennison's approval. During Prohibition, he ran the speakeasies. He was, by all accounts, the mob boss in Omaha. He also ran Omaha's Flatiron Building on St. Mary's Avenue, which was a very well-known safe house for mobsters who were fleeing the law in Chicago, St. Louis, and Kansas City. So in August of 1832, Dennison and 58 of his associates were on trial for conspiracy to violate the Volstead Act. The trial resulted in a hung jury, and it was declared a mistrial. Those charges were never refiled. The following year, Dennison was divorced by his wife, who was at that time 20 years old. He lost the political ticket in that election, and he was on a business trip in California where he was involved in a fatal automobile accident that took his life. He passed away at age 75. His funeral was held on February 24th, 1934 from St. Peter's Catholic Church, which was filled with more than 1,000 mourners representing Omaha's business, government, and sporting interests. 108 cars made up the procession to Forest Lawn Cemetery. Now, throughout his life, Dennison maintained vehemently that he had no control over any politics, and once explained his theory of law to an Omaha Bee reporter. He said, and I quote, "There are so many laws that people are either lawbreakers or hypocrites. For my part, I hate a damn hypocrite.